Hello, today I'm going to show you how to mat your drawings. There's a couple different reasons that you mat your drawings. One is to enhance your artwork, to make it look better. It creates a barrier around your artwork. Let's say you have a piece with color like this one. You want a nice neutral area around your artwork. The other way is to create a barrier this way. And the mat board keeps the glass, when you frame your painting, it keeps the glass away from your artwork. If you put artwork on the outside wall of your house, the temperature can change, the humidity can change very quickly, and so it can create condensation that could go down the inside of your glass. And that could put streaks on a watercolor or a pastel drawing. So, the first thing to do is to figure out the window. The window is the space here in the middle. I'm not the greatest at math, so I goof up a lot when I'm matting. And if I goof up, then I'll keep the mat board and I'll cut it into L's, and I'll use that and figure out the window. So maybe I want my window more horizontal, maybe I want it more square, maybe I want it more vertical. So I'll figure out the dimensions of the window. And then what I do is I work all my measurements out on a scrap piece of paper, and I've determined the measurements for my mat board here, and I make all my measurements on the back of the mat board. So what I've done is I've put 2.5 inches on the sides and 2.5 inches on the top. And there are two different ways that you can do this. You can have the same amount of space all the way around your mat, or you can add a little more to the bottom of your mat. In this case, I've made the bottom 3 inches. Generally, you make your mat board between 2 inches and 4 inches. Somewhere in that range. You don't want to go any smaller than 2 inches or why mat it at all. For larger drawings, you use smaller mat board, maybe 2 inches, and for smaller artwork, you use larger mat board, maybe up to 4 inches. So on this one, I've measured it out. I want my mat board to be 10 inches by 12 inches. I even mark things like the bottom and the top, because sometimes I'll end up putting the bottom into the top of my frame, which isn't good. And I'm also going to take off 4 inches on this side, just so you can see how to use the straight cutter. So now I'm going to go over to the mat cutter. And I'm going to put this under the straight edge. Line it up with the straight edge. And now I'm going to use this straight cutter, and I'll put it on the straight edge. Keep your fingers back. This takes a little elbow grease. You grab the straight cutter and you draw it across like that. And that gets rid of that 4 inches. And now I'm going to cut the window out of the center. And for that, I'm going to put a little scrap of used mat board underneath. Sometimes it helps to make a sharper cut when you do that. I'm going to line up the line, and now I'm going to use a bevel cutter. This bevel cutter cuts at a 45-degree angle. This bevel cutter it looks like a thumbtack on it, and I use this to punch it down, and it holds the mat the bevel cutter in place while the blade goes down into the mat board. So I put the bevel cutter onto the mat board and I line it up with this white line here. I line that white line up with my line. I press the thumbtack down. I press the blade down. Then I let the thumbtack up and then I draw this across. And I end up at the other line. And then I'm going to just check this to make sure that it's cutting well. Usually the razor blades can cut for about 4 mats and then they start getting dull and they need to be changed. So I'm going to push the thumbtack down again, press the blade down, let the thumbtack up, and draw this across. Matting is a good skill to learn. You can save yourself a lot of money, especially if you're doing your senior show and you have to mat a lot of things. Also, I've had a number of students who've worked at places like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, the Monroe Street Frame Shop. All right, and that's what the finished mat looks like. It's best to go just a little farther into the corners than not to go far enough. If you don't go far enough, you need to take a box cutter and kind of cut out the corners, and that never looks very good. So now I've got my mat cut. And what I'm going to do is I've got a piece of artwork here, and I'm going to take some masking tape, and I'm going to put the sticky side up on the back of the artwork. And I'm only doing this to place my artwork. You don't want to use masking tape because it has a lot of acid in it. And over time, that will turn your artwork yellow and deteriorate it. Now I'm putting my mat board over the artwork, and I also want to mention that it's very important to have clean fingers when you're doing this so you don't mark up your mat board. We try to keep the matting table very clean. So I'm going to put this down here, press it down, and then I will flip it over. And I have it in place. Now I want to use this linen tape. Linen tape is neutral pH, so it won't turn your artwork yellow. It won't deteriorate it. And I'll cut this into a couple inch tabs, and then you need to take off the back, and then you put the tab down and you just hinge it at the top of your artwork. You don't want to tape it all the way around your artwork because that'll put a lot of stress on your artwork. With the changes in humidity, it expands and contracts, and you want it to be able to expand and contract. So you only hinge it on the top of your artwork, like that. All right, once you have that done, you can cut a piece of foam core to go on the back of your mat board. This mat board is also neutral pH, so it's museum quality, and it also won't deteriorate your artwork. And foam core is very light, and you can use this as a backing for your art to protect the back of your art. Some artists will double mat their work, and they might put a mat board of a different color behind it here, and let that show maybe 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. The mat board that I have here at school is white and off-white and black. A lot of times you'll use just neutral colors around your artwork, but you can go to different places like Lynn's Craft Shop and there's hundreds of different colors you can put around your art. Students always like to use black, but it does mark up fairly easily. You don't ever want to use a pencil eraser on black. It makes more marks than it actually takes off. What you want to use is a kneaded eraser to take off any marks on your mat board. And let's see. So once I have put the linen tape down on this, then I'll be taking the masking tape off. You want to make sure that that comes off. And I believe that's it for this demonstration.